Hello everyone, welcome to the IGCSE Passion. For today we will be explaining chapter 7 from the biology syllabus, which is about human nutrition. You will find some points that are related for the past lesson, which is about the nervous system. I filmed the video earlier. I'll be placing it in the description box to check it out. So let's start with the lesson. Here are the points that you need to know. You need to start with the diet. We will go through the points in order, so don't worry about that. There are five, I guess, sub chapters from chapter 7, as you can see. And let's start. So we will define balanced diet. What is a balanced diet? It is the diet that contains all essentials from nutrition in the correct proportion to maintain good health. Wait, let me just highlight for you. As we usually do, we will hide the keywords so that you can add them to your answer whenever you have an exam. So it contains all essential nutrition in correct proportions. Put that in mind. Not incorrect amount sometimes may deduct from you marks, so stick with correct portions to maintain good health. Okay, so principal dietary sources, we have carbohydrates, fats and oils. You'll know the difference between fats and oils in the upcoming slides, so don't worry about that. Proteins, vitamins, limited to C and D, but just say that they are vitamins. Mineral ions, also limited to calcium and iron. And the last two are fiber. And lastly, water. Water is a source. Put that in mind. Now we will talk about the use of each of the dietary sources and where can you find them? Like how can you bring them from the food? Starting with carbohydrates, I will walk in order just as the slide before. So carbohydrates are a source of energy. You would take them just for energy. Where can you find them? You can find them in rice, potatoes, or bread. Then we have fats and oils. What is the difference between fats and oils? Now, fat is the solid type and oil is the liquid type. Easy, right? So, what is the use of the fat? Why do we eat fat? Firstly, it is considered as a source of energy. Now, if you want to know exactly how much to take energy from that, you can check, I guess, chapter 4, where it talks about maybe, I guess, wait, it is talking about glucose and fats and proteins, and there's some simple units and stuff like that. You can check it out later on. Then another use for fats is insulation. How can it insulate you? By making an adipose tissue that we talked about earlier in chapter 14, where you can find it in your skin structure. Then we have another use, which is preventing heat loss. And lastly, insulating nerve fiber. Now, where can you find the fats and oils? There are a lot of sources, including butter, milk, cheese, or egg yolk. Now, going to proteins. Proteins are used for a lot of stuff, and I mean a lot. It is very important, including growth, tissue repair, making enzymes, making hormones, as well as making cell membranes, and lastly for energy. Now, all of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are used as an energy source, but mainly we would use carbohydrates firstly, then we would go to fats if there is no carbohydrates, and lastly, if there is no fats nor carbohydrates, we would go to proteins. And where can you find proteins? You can find it in meat or fish. Now, going to vitamins. Now, as we said earlier, it is limited only to C and D. Starting with the use of C, it is there to maintain healthy skin and gum. Let me just use another color for the highlighter. I guess it would become much more fun. So, what are the uses of vitamin C again? It is there for healthy skin as well as a healthy gum. While for vitamin D, we use it for a lot of stuff also. Firstly, for hard bones, and secondly, vitamin C absorption. Now, I made this abbreviation. If you want, I can just say that it is just the same as this one. with the vitamin C. I just wanted to make it simple for you. I want to have a simple table to be memorized easily, or if you're taking notes. So give me my excuse. Now, going to the where you can find the vitamins. Vitamin C is found in citrus fruits and mangoes. Now, fun fact is that citrus is coming from the French language. I was taking French back in last year during my high school. So, now, as far as I know, citrus mean lemon in French, but you can also refer in English. In English, you can refer to it as the fruits such as oranges and lemons. Now, going to vitamin D, you can find it in milk and cheese. And for skin, how can skin contain vitamin D? By just exposing it to sunlight. That's why they always tell you do not spend a lot of time inside the house and go around. Just see the sun. Now going to iron. Iron and calcium is coming from the minerals, but I made it into two different categories as they're not that related. Now iron is there for hemoglobin in red blood cell. Now iron makes the hemoglobin. That's why you should take iron for oxygen intake, and that's why it can really affect your breathing rate. Um, Now, where can you find iron? We have two sources, including red meat and livers. Now, talking about calcium, calcium is there for healthy bones and teeth. And how can you get calcium now? I guess this is the most common one that parents would always tell you to drink milk to have very strong bones and teeth. So that is an easy point. So calcium can be found in both milk and cheese or dairy products in general. Fiber, fiber is there for large intestine. Now, what do the fiber do? It helps in the peristalsis of large intestine. It allows the feces to move and the material inside the large intestine to move easily so that you won't get constipation and different health problems. Now, where can you find fiber? You can find it in different vegetables. Now, lastly but not least, I'm sorry, what happened? Oh, yes, water. Water is very easy. Water is important in different parts, including the blood, transporting of material throughout your body, cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the liquid inside the cell that holds the other organelles inside your cell, so it is very important. And lastly, it removes waste, such as urine. And obviously, the source of the water, and as well as fruits and vegetables, like such as cucumber, it contains water, so that's why water is not only limited to the water that we know. Now, going to deficiencies. You need to only know two deficiencies, but I'm going to tell you a third one as I'm not really sure about it. Now, I didn't find it in the syllabus, but I saw some questions about it in the past papers, so I'm going to tell you about it, but after those 2 points. Now, we have two types of deficiencies that you should know, and it is written in your syllabus, which is scurvy and rickets. Scurvy is where and rickets is where. Scurvy is related to vitamin C deficiency. So when you don't eat a lot of vitamin C, such as lemons, but also mangoes, uh, oranges, what happens? Fibers in connective tissues of the skin and the blood vessel don't grow properly, leading to bleeding under the skin, especially your gum. Now, if you searched on the net to see the pictures, now I didn't place any picture just because I'm scared of the YouTube the policies, so I'm not gonna put a picture of that. But mainly, like when your gum is bleeding, it is somehow you can relate it to scurvy if you're not healthy person or you don't have a balanced diet. Now, talking about rickets, rickets is related to vitamin C or calcium deficiency. So, calcium and vitamin D deficiencies can lead to rickets. What is rickets? It is soft bones form and become deformed, and exposure to sunlight help makes vitamin D. So if people made X-ray and they have rickets, you will find that their bones, for instance, their feet are bended like towards outside. So that is due to rickets that makes soft bones that are easy. They can easily break. That's why people who are not exposed to sunlight a lot and they spend a lot of time inside the house may get affected with rickets, and you'll find that they can get injuries easily because they don't have that strong bones. And lastly, I'll be talking about anemia. I didn't place it in the PowerPoint as I'm just making sure that it is based on the newest syllabus. But in the past syllabuses, there was a thing about anemia, which is the deficiency of iron, and that is related to having not like it affects the red blood cells in your body, and again, it affects your respiratory system in general. Now, going to 7.2, which is talking about digestive system, you need to know the parts of the alimentary canal and the accessory glands. Now, the ones that have circles around them are the accessory glands and organs, but the others that are labeled are the main alimentary canal that we will talk in details about their functions. Now, I'll start with the process from the very, very start, from where your food would enter and from where does it leave. Now, starting with the mouth, it is where you put the food. Then you have this tiny organ right here. Now, it's not written. I'm going to try to write it with the pen. I hate using the pen right here, but what should I do? Now, this one is the salivary gland. Salivary, I'm going to just write the abbreviation just so that my handwriting won't be that miserable. Salivary gland. Okay? And then it goes down, the food will goes down through the esophagus. I'm gonna highlight it just so that you can stay with me. Wait, where's the highlighter? Okay, esophagus. Then after going down the esophagus, it will fall into your stomach. Now after your stomach, after it goes inside there and it gets exposed to several stuff that we'll talk about later on, it will go through the duodenum. Now, from the duodenum, which is the very, very first part of your small intestine. Now, both the small intestine and the large intestine is broken into two parts. Now, for the small intestine, you start with the duodenum and then you go to the ileum. Now, the ileum is this one. Wait, let me just use another color, orange. Okay, so this thing, this very long, thin thing right here is known as the ileum. But the very, very first part that welcomes the food from your stomach is the duodenum. Now, completing our way through our body while eating, we will reach the large intestine. As we said, the large intestine is broken into two parts. We have the very, very first part, which is this large thing. Wait, let me just use red, let's say. This thing, it is, now it's not that fair, like they do not have the same length, but I mean, what should we do? Here, all of that is known as, wait, blue color, colon. And the last part, which is leading us to escape from the body, is the rectum, which is the second part of your large intestine. And lastly, but not least, the anus. Now, talking about the things that are not related to the alimentary canal, what is related to your digestive system, I'm gonna use yellow. Okay, we will start with our liver. The liver have a role of producing a thing known as bile that we will talk about it later on, and the liver would send the thing that it would produce into your gallbladder. The gallbladder is this white thing right here that is connecting to the purple part. So the gallbladder is receiving what the liver made, and it will then secreted through the bile duct. Now, the bile duct is this route that leads to the purple organ. Now, this organ or gland is known as the pancreas. Moving on, we will talk about each region in your alimentary canal and your digestive system in general and what is its function. So, wait, let me just move this thing, okay? So, the mouth. The mouth is there for food ingestion and it mechanically digests by cutting, chewing, and grinding of teeth. It also contains saliva, which lubricates the food. Now, going to the salivary gland, which is an accessory gland, it produces saliva. Now, from where does the saliva comes? It comes from the salivary gland that you can find it literally under your tongue, containing enzyme amylase. This is the type of enzyme. I guess we talked about it in chapter 5, but that's fine. You don't really need to talk about it right now. We just want to focus on the points of chapter 7 to begin the chemical digestion of starch. Let me just use red. This is an important point. So amylase is there for breaking of starch that enters the mouth. So the mouth has saliva. The saliva lubricates the food. The saliva also contains an enzyme which is amylase that breaks down the starch. And to produce that, it is your salivary gland. Water and saliva help lubricate food and makes its small pieces stick together. Okay, now going to your esophagus, this long tube right here. Wait, let me just go back here. This tube, the long one right here, is known as the esophagus, as we said earlier. Uh, Food bowls or bowls pass through from mouth to the stomach. So it is just the transportation of food from your mouth to your stomach. Now going to stomach, it contains muscular wall. Squeeze the food to make it semi-liquid. So it will break down even the food more by the muscles right there. It will make a peristalsis acting like it will have peristalsis where it will squeeze the food until it becomes semi-liquid. Now, what does the stomach contain? I said earlier that there's a thing inside the stomach that have a very special job, which is the gastric juice. Contain protease. Protease is an enzyme that breaks down your protein. Chemical digest protein, and it also contains not only gastric juice, but it also contains hyaluronic acid, HCl, to maintain a pH of 1 to 2.5. You need to memorize the pH of the stomach, which is 1 to 2.5, but mainly they would stick with 1, and sometimes they would say 2. You don't need to know the 1 at this point 5. The acid also, this HCl also kills the bacteria that is inside the food to prevent any poisoning from the food that you eat. Now going to your duodenum, which is the very, very first part of your small intestine. So the first part of the small intestine, as we said, it receives pancreatic juice containing protease. Now there's two different juices in there. The gastric juice, which is from the stomach, and the pancreatic juice from your pancreas, which contain protease, lipase, and amylase, all of the three. The juice also contains sodium hydrogen carbonate, which neutralizes stomach acid. Now, as we said earlier, in the stomach, it contains gastric juice, which contains HCl, which have a very, very low pH. Now, the very low pH is not always welcomed by all your body. It can only be welcomed in your stomach as it contains a wall that protects it from how acidic is it. But your duodenum is not as strong, so it cannot work with this very acidic condition. So we have the sodium hydrogen carbonate, which neutralizes this acidic kind that comes from your stomach. Now the stomach, okay, giving a pH of the neutral pH, which is 7 to 8. 8 is a bit basic. If you study chemistry, you will know that. but the neutral thing is 7. Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are digested here. As we said, there is protease, lipase, and amylase, so all type of nutrition will be broken down even more. Going to the ileum have a very, very special part in your alimentary canal. It is the place where most nutrition is absorbed. So it is the second part of your small intestine. Enzymes in the epithelial lining chemically digest maltose and peptides. So there is an enzyme on the epithelial lining. Now your ileum is covered with an epithelial lining which chemically digests maltose and peptide. Now this is even the simpler unit of like it digests what the starch even more. Like the simpler unit of starch is digested by maltose, which is maltase, and peptides is there to break down the peptide bond between the amino acids to have amino acids by themselves and have the simplest unit of proteins. Now, completing the function of ileum, its surface area is increased by the presence of villi. We will talk about this even more, which allow efficient absorption of digested food molecules. Sorry, guys, my microphone just disconnected, so I needed to stop filming and restart. So where did we stop? We stopped right in the function of ileum. We said that there's the villi for efficient absorption of digested food molecules, and lastly, it is where most water is reabsorbed. Now going to the pancreas. Pancreas job is to wait. Let me just highlight. Secretes pancreatic juice into your duodenum for chemical digestion of all proteins, fats, and starch. Now going to your liver, as we said, liver have a lot of functions in here. So it makes something known as bile, which is stored in your gallbladder. Note that the liver does not make digestive enzymes, it only makes bile, and bile is not an enzyme. This is an important point. Bile contains salts that emulsifies fat. So how is the fat made into a simpler unit? It is by emulsification, which is a physical digestion, not a chemical one. Put that in mind. Forming droplets of large surface area to digest it by lipase more efficiently. It does not change the fat molecules chemically, as we said. It is just the droplet size that changes from large to small due to the action of bile. Digested food are assimilated here. For example, glucose is stored as glycogen. Superlose amino acids are dominated. Now, domination is related to chapter 13, so it is not related a lot to chapter 7, nor glucose and glycogen, as it is related to your chapter 14 syllabus. So forget about them. Now going to your gallbladder. Gallbladder is there to store bile that is coming from the liver. It is that small white part that I talked about earlier. Wait, let me just go back here. This thing, this little part above the liver. This one is known as the gallbladder. Going back, sorry. Okay. So made in the liver to be secreted into your duodenum via the bile duct, which is that tube that moves down that is connected to your pancreas to secrete it into your duodenum. Now going to colon. Colon is the second part of large intestine, or the first part. Sorry, I guess I made a mistake right here. It reabsorbs water, but mainly the water is reabsorbed in your small intestine in the ileum, but also the rest of the water is absorbed in your colon. Undigested food results in the formation of feces. It also absorbs bile salt to pass it back to the liver to be reused. It won't be thrown away. Now going to the rectum. Rectum is the second part of your large intestine. It stores feces until they are digested or it would escape your body. Lastly, anus. Anus has a muscle to control when feces are egested or escape and when it shouldn't from your body. Going to the definitions that you need to know, we start with the ingestion, which was by the mouth. It is taking in the substances. Digestion is the breakdown of foods. Absorption is the movement of nutrition from the small intestine or from the intestines into your blood. Sorry, I'm just making a lot of mistakes. And going to assimilation, assimilation is the uptake and the use of nutrition by the cell. So it becomes a part of the cell. Mention that in your answers, please. And lastly, egestion. Egestion is uptake and use. Wait, oh, there's a mistake right here. It's the wrong definition. Sorry, I just made a mistake. I'm really sorry. Now this is not the definition. Egestion is the escape. I'm gonna write it down. I'm really sorry for the mistake right here. I didn't notice that. Escape of feces. Or getting rid of feces. You can say that as well. Feces. A C E S. Feces. Okay. Now talking about physical digestion, which is 7.3, we are close to the end. Don't worry about taking a lot of time on this lesson. Physical digestion is, let's define it and let's highlight the keywords in the answer as usual. It is the breakdown of food into smaller pieces without chemically changing the form of the food or changing to the food molecules. What is the role of physical digestion? Like, why do we need that? It increases the surface area of food for the action of enzyme, like in chemical digestion. So it is there to help chemical digestion by enzymes for the food. Now you need to know different type of teeth. As we said, teeth is there for grinding, churning, biting of food. So it would break it even into smaller molecules so that the enzymes can take place and act efficiently. Now you need to know how to label them. If they give you this diagram on the side, this one, wait, let me just put a circle from where I'm talking about. I'm talking about the structure. So if they brought that, you need to know how to label the different types of teeth. So we have four types. We have the incisors, canions, premolars, and molars. Let's start with the incisor. Incisor is this one, the ones in the front. Then we have the canyons, which are literally just beside them. The sharp teeth, like you can see through your mirror, if you looked at yourself in the mirror, you can see that there's this sharp tooth beside your canyon, which is known as, sorry, beside your incisor, which is the canyon. Then we have the premolar, which is just before the molar, which is right here. I'm highlighting it right there. And lastly, the molar. The molar is the last two teeth right here. Now we need to know even deeper details about your tooth and how does it look like even from like a cross section. So the one that you can see when you open your mouth is known as the crown. The one that you cannot see is the root. And we have the outermost layer from your tooth, the white one is known as the enamel. It is one of the hardest tissues out there that can help you in eating and it can protect the layers under it. Then we have the dentine, which is the brown layer right here, which nourishes the tooth. The tooth is not dead. It contains blood. It contains nerves. So it is a living thing, and it requires nutrition and to be nourished so that it can still work. Then we have the pulp cavity. Now the pulp cavity is the white middle part that contains both of the nerves and the nutrition that nourishes the tooth that reaches into your dentine. And the tooth is inside your gum. And how is it secured in place? It is secured in place by the cement into your bones. Now, function of different teeth. As we said, we have four types, which are the incisor, canine, premolar, and molar. What's the job of each? Starting with the incisor, it is there for biting off pieces of food. Canine, similar function as the incisor, sorry. And we have the premolar. Premolar is there for tearing and grinding of the food. There are two different functions right here. And the molar is there for chewing and grinding of food. Now, talking about the stomach and how is it related to physical digestion. As I said, the stomach have peristalsis. It is the movement of the muscles of the stomach to make a uh, semi-liquid substance into your stomach. So the stomach contains both of gastric juice and HCl, but they are not related to physical digestion. HCl is secreted by the cells of the stomach wall to create a very acidic condition in there for enzyme optimum pH and kill bacteria to prevent food poisoning. We said that earlier in the past slides. Now, talking about the real physical digestion of the stomach, it is the peristaltic contractions of the smooth muscles inside your stomach is also taking place to break down food even more after the mouth. Now, talking about bile. Bile is, as we said earlier, produced by your liver. Bile is produced in the liver. Here's a point. The second point is it is stored in your gallbladder and transferred to your duodenum by the bile duct. It has no enzymes. It is not an enzyme, but it contains bile salts. It emulsifies fats, breaking them up into small droplets with a large surface area to be efficiently digested by lipase. It is slightly alkali, neutralizing the acid mixture of food that is coming from your stomach in the gastric juice that is entering your duodenum. Now, talking about 7.4, which is the chemical digestion. So, chemical digestion, what is the definition and the keywords again? It is the breakdown of large insoluble, this is very important. I'm going to place an exclamation mark right here so you can notice it. Insoluble molecules into small soluble one. Another exclamation mark. What is the role of chemical digestion? Producing small soluble molecules that can be absorbed. The role of enzyme. What are the roles of enzyme? We have three roles for three different enzymes, starting with amylase. Break down starch into simple reduced. Wait. Breaking down starch to simply reducing sugar. Yes, reducing sugar is just like the glucose, but it is much of more scientific naming, so that's why we say reducing sugar rather than glucose. Then we have the protease. Protease break down protein to what? To amino acid. This is an error. I don't know why did it appear like that. And then we have lipase. Lipase breaks down fat and oils to fatty acid and glycerol. We have the location of acting of each of the enzymes. You need to know that. And the products of each. We said that earlier right here, but this one is much more detailed. So the amylase location of acting is in your mouth and duodenum. The mouth is by the salivary gland, and the duodenum is coming from your pancreas. And the product of the amylase is simply reducing sugar, like maltose and glucose. You have different types of reducing sugar, and you can just label them as reducing sugars just to be more specific. Now, talking about protease, protease is acting in both your stomach and duodenum. Again, stomach is coming from the walls of your stomach, and the duodenum, it comes from your pancreas. The product is amino acids. Lipase is it is in your duodenum, and it is coming from your pancreas. The product is fatty acid and glycerol. Talking about the digestion of starch and digestion of protein, you need to know that I brought them from the syllabus as themselves. I didn't change anything, so you need to memorize it as it is. So the digestion of starch, amylase breaks down starch to maltose. So you start with your mouth. The amylase that you ingested will turn into maltose, and then maltose will be broken down even more into by maltase to turn into glucose, which and the maltase is found in your small intestine on the membrane of the epithelium lining. Now, talking about digestion of protein, you have two types of protease. You have the pepsin and the trypsin, and they are found in two different locations. Pepsin is in your stomach, breaks down proteins into breaks down protein into amino acid in the acidic conditions of your stomach, as we said. Trypsin breaks down protein in alkaline conditions. Oh, there is an important point. Now, pepsin is in acidic conditions, trypsin is in alkaline conditions in your small intestine, not your stomach, to turn into amino acid as well. Now, talking about our very last points in our chapter, which is absorption. I brought them, I guess, as themselves from your syllabus, so don't worry about that. So, absorption in your body, the main part of absorption is the small intestine, and most water, as we said earlier, is absorbed in your small intestine, but some is absorbed in colon. Now you need to know the structure of the villi that we talked earlier about in the functions of the ileum. This is the structure of villi. Now this long finger-like structure is known as villi. I'm gonna use the pen right here. You need to know the parts of this thing, starting with the outermost layer, which is the epithelial lining that we talked about earlier. It contains maltase on its surface to break down maltose, one cell thick to increase diffusion rate. You need to know this point. Microvilli increases a surface area for absorption, so the epithelial lining contains even more smaller villi structures on it to increase the surface area, as well as being one cell thick so that the diffusion rate would increase. Talking about the blood capillary, this red thing, it absorbs glucose, amino acid, and water that is coming from the digested food. Blood movement maintain diffusion gradient. This is important. You need to memorize the diffusion thing in your digestive system a lot because there are a lot of questions about it. Talking about lactin, which is this tiny tube inside there that is covered with capillaries, it absorbs fatty acid and glycerol. Last thing in our PowerPoint of the day, villi. It is a finger-like projection in your small intestine. Wait, let me just use a highlighter. In your small intestine that increases the surface area of absorption. The surface area of a villus is further increased by the presence of microvilli. These tiny, even smaller fingers are found on the finger-like structures right here, which are known as microvilli to increase the surface area of the absorption even more. Inside each villus are blood capillaries that absorb amino acid and glucose and water. There are also lactil, which, as we said earlier, absorbs fatty acid and glycerol. Food molecules are absorbed mainly by diffusion. Molecules can be absorbed also by active transport, which is diffusion from low concentration to high concentration against concentration gradient using energy or ATP. Epithelial cells contain mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell that provides energy for absorption against the concentration gradient, which is the same as active transport. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope that I helped you with this lesson. Don't forget to subscribe to IGCSE Passion and see you in the upcoming video. Bye!